If you're planning to fly anywhere inside the United States right now, this is something you need to hear before you walk into an airport. It doesn't matter if you're here on a visa, possess a green card, are protected under a temporary program, or even if your status is uncertain. What's occurring behind the scenes could affect you the moment you present your ID at security. This isn't a rumor and it's not speculation. It's already occurring and most travelers have no idea. Welcome to U.S. Policy Brief, your reliable source for the newest information on U.S. immigration, visas, green cards, and citizenship. I am your host, Fernando. Right now, passenger information gathered at airport security is being shared with immigration enforcement in a way we've never witnessed before. Quietly at first, and now at a much larger scale, data from routine domestic flights is being transmitted and analyzed, triggering questioning, missed flights, and in some cases, detention at U.S. airports. And the most important part, this is not limited to international travel. This is about regular flights inside the country. By the end of this video, you'll clearly understand what's going on, why this has suddenly escalated, who is most exposed to risk, and what steps you should take before you fly, so you don't walk blindly into a situation that could spiral out of control fast. Here's where this begins. Over the past year, federal agencies have expanded how they share information with each other. What started as limited cooperation has now evolved into routine automated data transfers. Transportation security officials are now sending passenger details to immigration enforcement multiple times each week. These are not small lists. We're talking about massive batches of traveler data covering people flying every single day across the country. Every time you pass through airport security for a domestic flight, basic information tied to your identity and travel is gathered. And that information doesn't stop with screening your bag. It's being forwarded, stored, and cross-checked. Officials say the purpose is enforcement efficiency. But in practice, it means immigration databases are now being matched against ordinary travel records in near real time. What makes this especially concerning is how quietly this expanded. There was no public announcement aimed at travelers, no warning at airports, no clear explanation about how this could affect people who are otherwise living, working, and studying legally in the United States. Yet, the system is already active, and its reach is growing month by month. And this is just the foundation. Once this data enters enforcement systems, everything changes. How travelers are flagged, how airports are staffed, and how quickly a normal trip can turn into an interrogation. In the next part, we'll break down exactly what information is being shared, how it's analyzed, and why even people who believe they're fully compliant with the law are being pulled into situations they never expected. So, what exactly is being shared when you fly? And why is this creating so many problems? The information being transmitted may sound basic at first, but when combined with enforcement databases, it becomes extremely powerful. Each time you pass through security, your full legal name is logged exactly as it appears on your identification. Your date of birth is included. Your flight details are recorded, where you're going, when you're departing, and when you're expected to arrive. Once that data is sent over, it doesn't sit untouched. It's immediately processed through automated systems that compare it against immigration and enforcement records. These systems are designed to look for inconsistencies, prior immigration history, overstays, old orders, or anything that might raise a flag. And this is where the margin for error becomes dangerous, because immigration status is rarely as simple as a yes or no answer. There are people in the United States who are fully legal but don't fit neatly into a database snapshot. Students with expired visa stamps but valid status. Workers waiting on extensions. Individuals with pending applications that haven't been updated across all systems. To a computer or to an officer unfamiliar with immigration nuances, these situations can look suspicious even when they're not. Adding another layer to this, some airport security officers are now being trained to ask questions that go beyond standard screening. Traditionally, their role was limited: verify identity, ensure safety, and keep prohibited items off planes. But now, in certain airports, officers are being instructed to look more closely at foreign passports, visas, and documents, and in some cases, escalate concerns directly to immigration authorities. This shift has already led to real-world consequences. Travelers are being pulled aside not because they're a security threat, but because an officer doesn't fully understand how immigration status works. A valid document is mistaken for an invalid one. An expired visa stamp is treated as unlawful presence. And once immigration enforcement is alerted, the process takes on a life of its own. When that occurs, it doesn't matter how confident you are that you're following the rules. You can miss your flight. You can be held for hours. And even if everything is eventually cleared up, the damage is already done financially, emotionally, and logistically. And this isn't theoretical. These situations are occurring right now to people who never imagined a routine domestic flight could put them in this position. In the next part, we're going to discuss what occurs when those data matches trigger action, how enforcement officers are now being positioned at airports, and why arrests and detentions during domestic travel are no longer rare exceptions. Once a traveler's information is flagged, things can move very quickly. Immigration enforcement is no longer just reviewing data from a distance. Officers are now being placed directly inside airports, positioned to act the moment a flagged passenger appears. In some cases, they're waiting at the destination gate. In others, they're alerted before boarding even begins. Here's how it works. Passenger data sent from airport security is scanned and compared against immigration and criminal databases. When a match appears, someone with a past overstay, an unresolved immigration case, a prior removal order, or certain criminal records, enforcement teams can be deployed immediately. That means a person can be stopped after landing or prevented from flying altogether without any warning ahead of time. This represents a major shift from how things worked in the past. Domestic travel was rarely a focus of immigration enforcement. Most people could fly within the United States without fearing they would encounter immigration officers at the airport. That assumption no longer holds. What was once rare is now becoming increasingly routine, especially as this program expands nationwide. Reports from travelers describe landing at their destination and being approached by officers who already know their name, their background, and their immigration history. Others have been pulled out of security lines or stopped at the gate before boarding. These encounters are not random. They're the direct result of data analysis occurring behind the scenes long before the passenger ever arrives at the airport. What's especially troubling is the speed. There's often no opportunity to clarify or correct information before action is taken. Even people who are ultimately cleared can lose flights, be separated from family members, or be held in questioning rooms while officers verify details. And for those with unresolved immigration issues, the encounter can escalate into detention on the spot. Officials familiar with the rollout of this program have acknowledged that airport-related immigration arrests have increased significantly compared to previous years. People who were simply traveling for work, school, or family emergencies are now being caught up in enforcement actions that would have been unlikely not long ago. And as this system continues to expand, the risk doesn't apply equally to everyone. Some travelers face far greater exposure than others. Now, we'll break down exactly who is most at risk and why even people with legal status need to be paying close attention before they fly. Not everyone faces the same level of risk under this system, and understanding where you fall makes a real difference. The people most exposed are those who are in the country without lawful status, or who overstayed a visa and have no pending applications or protections in place, even though a valid passport can still be used to board domestic flights. Once travel data is shared and reviewed, prior entries and expiration dates become visible. That's often when questioning begins, and in some cases, detention follows. But risk doesn't stop there. Many people who are legally present are in what could be called a transition phase. These are individuals waiting on extensions, changes of status, or approvals that haven't fully populated across government systems yet. On paper, everything is legal. In practice, a snapshot of their information can look incomplete or confusing. And when officers encounter uncertainty, delays and escalations are far more likely. Students are a common example. Many are lawfully in the United States even though the visa stamp in their passport has expired. Their legal status is tied to other documents, not the stamp itself. When officers unfamiliar with these rules see an expired visa, they may assume a violation has occurred. That misunderstanding alone can lead to missed flights and unnecessary involvement from immigration enforcement. People protected under temporary programs also need to be cautious. Work authorization cards, renewal receipts, and approval notices aren't always immediately understood by officers on the ground. If someone is mid-renewal or their status isn't instantly recognizable, they may be held long enough to verify details, sometimes long enough to miss their flight entirely. Even lawful permanent residents aren't completely immune. Certain criminal histories, ongoing court cases, or prior convictions can trigger flags when travel data is cross-referenced. In those situations, green card holders may be questioned to determine whether their status could be affected. While not every case leads to action, the encounter itself can be stressful and disruptive, especially when it occurs unexpectedly in an airport setting. The key takeaway here is that risk isn't limited to one category of traveler. It's tied to how clearly and cleanly your status appears in a system that doesn't always capture the full picture. And when that picture looks incomplete, enforcement steps in. In the next part, we'll examine real-world cases that show how fast these situations can escalate and why being caught off guard at an airport can put someone in an extremely vulnerable position. To understand how serious this has become, you have to examine what's already occurring to real people. These aren't hypothetical scenarios or isolated mistakes. They're the result of a system that acts first and asks questions later. In recent weeks, multiple travelers have reported being intercepted at airports after their information was flagged through routine data sharing. In one case, a young woman traveling to visit family within the United States was stopped immediately after landing. She had passed through security without incident, boarded her flight like any other passenger, and had no idea anything was wrong. When she arrived, immigration officers were already waiting. She was taken to a separate room, questioned extensively, and pressured to sign documents she didn't fully understand, all while being isolated from family and legal support. Moments like that are overwhelming. You're tired from traveling. You're in an unfamiliar space, and suddenly you're surrounded by officials who control whether you're free to leave or not. In those conditions, people often feel compelled to comply even when they don't fully grasp the consequences of what they're being asked to do. This is where the power imbalance becomes clear. Airport settings are uniquely vulnerable environments. Travelers are rushed, stressed, and often alone. When enforcement steps in, they can detain someone for hours, restrict communication, and apply pressure that feels impossible to push back against. And once documents are signed, the situation can change permanently, sometimes leading directly into removal proceedings. What makes these cases especially alarming is that many of the people affected weren't criminals, threats, or fugitives. They were students, young adults, workers, and family members traveling for ordinary reasons. Under previous practices, their travel would have gone unnoticed. Now, a simple flight can trigger a chain of events that alter someone's life in a single afternoon. And that's why preparation matters, because once you're already in that room, options become limited. In the final part of the video, we're going to focus on what you can do before you fly, how to reduce risk, protect yourself if you're questioned, and understand your rights in a situation where staying calm and informed can make all the difference. If you take one thing away from this video, let it be this. Preparation is your strongest protection. Before you even book a domestic flight, you need to be completely honest with yourself about your current immigration situation. Know exactly where you stand. Whether you're undocumented, waiting on an approval, in the middle of a renewal, or fully settled, clarity matters more now than ever. If your status is unresolved or expired, flying is no longer a casual decision. It doesn't automatically mean you can't travel, but it does mean there is real risk involved. Some airports are enforcing these procedures more aggressively than others, and timing, routing, and prior history all play a role. If you decide that travel is necessary, don't do it casually. Travel with someone who understands your situation. Make sure someone knows where you are and who to contact if something goes wrong. Documentation is critical. Carry everything that proves your legal presence or pending status, not just a passport. Approval notices, receipt notices, work authorization cards, student documents, entry records. Keep them organized and accessible. Officers may not understand your status immediately, and your ability to explain it clearly with paperwork in hand can determine whether an encounter lasts minutes or turns into something far more serious. If you're questioned, remember that you still have rights. You are not required to answer questions about your immigration history on the spot. You have the right to remain silent and the right to ask for legal counsel. You do not have to sign anything under pressure. No matter what you're told, signing documents without understanding them can have long-term consequences that are difficult or impossible to reverse. It's also important to keep perspective. This doesn't mean every traveler will be stopped. Many people will continue to fly without incident, but the number of airport encounters is rising, and ignoring that reality doesn't make it go away. Being informed allows you to make smart decisions instead of reactive ones. This situation is evolving and enforcement practices are changing quickly. Make sure you subscribe to US Policy Brief because staying aware, staying prepared, and knowing your rights gives you control in a system designed to move fast. Stay informed, stay protected, and I'll see you in the next update.